everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne, and I'll be your host for this episode. And joining me to be my wingman to take in the week in Belgian football, the week that saw the real business end of the season start, the playoffs, it's our very own Mr. Joris Beck. How are you, Joris?
I'm brilliant at the moment. How about you?
Yep, I'm pretty good. I've had a long day, a long and interesting day, but I won't bore listeners with that because it's got absolutely nothing to do with football. So we should dive into the stuff that everyone's actually here for, including us. As I was saying, the business end of the season is now upon us, the playoffs, that time when you either step up or hold your nerve or maybe not. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks. I think we saw some sides falling foul of exactly the same things that have been plaguing them all season, and a few sides that probably laid down a marker this weekend as well as to where they would like their season to finish. So we'll start, obviously, with the Champions Playoff 1. That seems like the most logical place to start. This weekend was Matchday 1 there, of course. Union Saint-Gilloise battering Antwerp 5-1 in Brussels. Club Brugge beating Besnik Hazi's Anderlecht now. When we were last with you, it looked like Besnik Hazi was on his way to Cercle Brugge, but that was not to be. The phone went reportedly when he was on his way, Joris, back from Albania to tie up the deal with Cercle, only for Anderlecht to go, would quite like you to come here. Would you like to come to Lotto Park when you land instead? Which is pretty much what happened. Club Brugge beat Anderlecht 2-0. No resistance from the visitors there. And your boys, Genk, absolutely battered the Buffaloes. Genk 4-0, going on a lot more than that. So let's start. We'll start in Brussels. Union Saint-Gilloise, speaking of batterings, dismantled Antwerp without too much resistance. 5-1, comprehensive stuff. Really strong start for Pocagnoli's boys, and he was really concerned coming into these playoffs that they were going to be ready to kind of come in and compete, because obviously they lost to Genk in that last match of the regular season. Weren't able to kind of close the gap any, and that just kind of underlined, I think, really what they needed to do, and they seem to have come into things in good spirits.
Yep, definitely. Also a nice revenge for them, of course, on Antwerp after, the last two games between them now is a 6-6 on aggregate. So if they win this one with 5-1, you know what happened last time around. That was in the cup, of course, so not of relevance to the league, but still, I'm sure that's a nice revenge to take as well. That's just a very strong performance from Union as well, of course, and Antwerp, on the other hand, we'll also have to talk about them, but a not so strong performance. Only the slight knock for Union as well is Boufal being out for reportedly now. Well, they reported it themselves. I believe it was today or beginning of this week for 3 or 4 weeks. So, yeah, that's a bit of a the dampening factor, but okay. They are for to a good start, and they will also without him, like they have actually played without him as well already throughout the season anyway. But we'll be able to be competitive. They've shown that. Promise Dave is getting his shirt ripped off basically by Bozhinov on the second goal. That was actually, I think, already. That's was a funny sight, one of the sights for the weekend, I guess, and shows how strong he was and is for sure. Definitely, and definitely good for them that both their strikers scored as well. So they off to a good start on confidence boost for both of them as well. Really in form, even though Ivanovic actually didn't play necessarily that well, but at the end of the game he has 2 goals behind him, so that behind his belt, so that's what he lives for as well, for sure. And well, just sometimes defensively they didn't look that strong, but it was not necessary in this game. Like they were specifically at the wings sometimes. That's where Antwerp scored, not the once but actually twice, with one of them, of course, being disallowed, but a very similar fashion as what eventually would be the consolation goal for Antwerp on the left wing for Union's point of view. That's yeah. That was vulnerable at times, but in the end, it didn't really matter. They got this 2-0 leads very early on. Antwerp did pull one back, but Bozhinov did not have the greatest of games and single-handedly pulled Antwerp out of the game, I guess, with a penalty. Um, Admittedly, I feel like giving him a second yellow card for what it was. It really looked like an accident. Yeah, I'm not convinced by that necessarily, but I don't think ultimately it would have changed anything in this game. But hard on him. It's more the question: should Uldering already have gotten him off the pitch already anyway, because he was having such a nightmare of a game? And the answer is clearly yes. In hindsight, it's of course easy to say it like that, but from where we're sitting now and in point of time we're sitting now, but on the other hand, it does show again that Antwerp is lacking some options. Alderweireld now being out, of course, causing Bozhinov to start, and Alderweireld being out for, well, we'll see, but it could still be. I think we talked about it last time already, but like maybe close to the end of the playoffs, only coming back. We'll have to wait and see on that one. For Antwerp, on the other hand, maybe slightly positive sign as well. It goes together with that, for them, then right hand side, with Balikwisha, actually scoring the disallowed goal, but also in the end getting the assist for the what actually became at that point in time the 2-1, and like keep bringing them back into the game. So he's showing some signs of improvement after his injury worries. He has had plenty of that this season, and let's see if he can keep it up for sure in the next weeks.
Yeah, I think he was probably one of the few positives in a way from an Antwerp perspective. Curious to get your thoughts on Andreas Ulderink's position. We know he's only there until the end of the season at the moment, but things haven't really started very well for him. And there's no real indication of any sort of bounce in a meaningful way at all. And I suppose the question is, do they and are they looking, do you feel at the moment, obviously beyond the end of the season, thinking about next season, and making a change there? Because my feeling about it is somebody different's going to have to come in and reset things there, because it's been feeling pretty stagnant for a while, and nothing seems to have changed.
There are rumors, and they're really only rumors. I want to stress that.
There's always rumours.
That's someone who was active, close to your, at the opposition end of your rivalry in Scotland, will come in for next season. But I'm already gonna, put a damper on that maybe as well. And given the recent news again, one, for now it looks like Ulrich is there. One of the reasons because he's a cheap option. Let's just put it bluntly like that. Nothing against the manager or the man himself either, but just like that seems to be the case. And like with Jalamko being in bad weather again, and like the whole situation with maybe we should tell our listeners that as well. Like the stands, Tribune 2 it was finally going to be broken down and then pulled up again. But while the works were going on, they have now stopped doing that because again, rumor though, so I have to admit that's not confirmed, but I'm more trusting this, that the external investor that was going to finance it together with the club pulled out of it because of all situation with Helamco and generally some perfect storm coming together again, I guess, for Antwerp there. and that makes me think like, can they afford Clement? That's which is of course the manager I was talking about before, hinting at. Can they actually afford him? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see again, obviously. But if Uldering will be there next season, yeah, it might actually depend on that financial situation. That's to sum up, I guess that's more or less what I would say. Together, of course, like okay, if the playoffs don't really go very badly for them, then I mean, I guess he's going to be out. But if they are going to be better, they will need to improve, as you said as well. So far, you can't really see any of it. But yeah, if they do, and maybe it also goes together with getting into a European spot or not, yeah, then maybe he could stay on for longer. But yeah, I doubt it. Is I guess the main answer. I'm very skeptical about it at the
Yeah,
moment.
there's a fair number of questions surrounding the Great Old at the moment. That's for sure, and there seems to be more week. I think slightly concerning time. I think for Antwerp fans, I suspect as well. You know, things have been on a bit of a downward turn on the pitch for a little while, certainly towards the latter half of the season, and now bigger, longer term questions around their preparations for next season as well. Speaking of sides who didn't put much of a fight up in Bruges this weekend, Club Brugge winning 2-0 against Besnik Hazi's Anderlecht, as I was mentioning a little while ago. Yeah, Besnik looked like he was on his way, speaking of Bruges, to club's rivals Circle, until Anderlecht picked up the phone and a last-minute change of course saw him take over at Anderlecht. And I think most people probably thought, because obviously he's well known at Anderlecht, he knows the club, both as a player and as a coach, and had certainly not hidden the fact that he was looking to go back to a big club at some point, hoping he'd get a chance to do that in his career. Circumstance seems to have kind of landed in his lap on this occasion, and he's grabbed this opportunity. Most people probably expected Anderlecht to come into this game with a bit more grit, not just because of the nature of this fixture. Obviously, two giants of Belgian football, two great rivals, culturally and historically as well in the Belgian football scene. Anderlecht, interestingly, have had a really miserable time in this fixture, particularly in the playoffs. I mean, they haven't beaten club in the playoffs since 2017-18, and in that time they've played club 9 times and not won once. So it's not a happy fixture for them. And this weekend was from their perspective a complete non-performance, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that was not great. There's definitely some things to be said about that fixture. Yeah, not being the favorite one for Anderlecht lately, and there has been times where it was the complete reverse. Not that long ago, even. That's the more grueling thing for them as well. Of course, yeah, two wins in 23 games. I think before that, not a little. Maybe we should go back 5 years already. It's possible, but there was a period where club couldn't win. Okay, specifically in Anderlecht, in that case, in the away fixture for right around 20 years as well. And that's okay. This is irrelevant to this fixture since it was in Bruges, of course, but it's not really encouraging either. And yeah, there's this one thing, a callback, of course, but like during company spell, it actually was quite good. Like the record from Anderlecht, they only lost once or twice, I believe. They won once, which one of those two only that they won, and well, a lot of the other ones were draws. Where the draw was definitely deserved, and it could have gone both ways, to say the least. So that's the schism there before and after company's time. The record is really really bad. But yeah, the past is a past, of course. But yeah, definitely just 2 wins in last 23 that we had to against any opponent. That's bad. Against your main rival, that's bad. Against your cup final opponent, that's even worse. But that's again another topic, of course. But and Hazi, well, on paper made a few good or like interesting choices at these changes in the starting 11, but ultimately it looked like it was a bit more of an offensive approach, but it wasn't. Maybe the names were, but not the way they played, unfortunately. So the tactics were not 0 shots on target, 0.16 xg. Yeah, you're not going to score then in Club Brugge. Well, they have scored, I think, only once this season. They didn't score, and that was already in the second league game against Standard, if I'm not mistaken. So to make the bridge through them already as well. On the other hand, they did get their first clean sheet because of this Anderlecht. The inability to create something since the 8th of February against Leuven. So that had been a while for their standards, for sure. And also noteworthy, I did not notice that before this weekend, but it came up in the highlights and it was stressed too many times, so I have to mention it as well. But it was Joris' first goal against the side in the top half of the league here, which surprised me as well. But now he has scored against Anderlecht, so that's definitely going to give them a boost as well. And it was not a very useful stat anyway, but it could have become a thing if he didn't score for a longer time in the playoffs as well, not against any of the playoff sides. But that's out of the way now.
Yeah, I think that result pretty much ends any lingering hopes that anybody of an Anderlecht persuasion had that they would be able to create much of an impression in the playoffs. Obviously, there's still a number of games to go, and a lot of points to play for. But I think that answers one of the big questions. We were just talking about, Union being able to kind of step things up and bring themselves into the conversation. I think that's sort of ended any meaningful conversation. Anyone with the most positive spin on where Anderlecht were coming from for this season. Clubs fixtures coming up. They've got Antwerp away, and then the big one, Genk at home, which is going to be very important, particularly if the points margin remains the same as it does at the moment. A really interesting one coming up. Everyone's looking forward to that one. We've already spoke about one battering, the battering in Brussels. There was another one in Limburg. Your side, Joris, Genk, dismantled the Buffaloes 4-0, going on probably 7 or 8, actually. And that, that's saying nothing about the 2 missed penalties. An absolute demolition. Probably should have been much more. Genk still undefeated at home this season. I know we spoke about that last time we were together as well, and whether they'd be able to maintain that. And if they could, that would probably go a long way to answering where the title might go in the end as well. But yeah, I mean, they were looking, they're looking strong, and they look like they're enjoying themselves, and they must be, because obviously they released a little video just before the playoffs started, a few days before, to celebrate very much the fact that they were really going for this, which I thought was quite bold, and an interesting take from the comms team. Did you enjoy that? Because it's the sort of thing that makes some fans nervous when comms teams get a little bit carried away with communications like that.
I mean, there's always 2 sides to this, but I'm actually on one hand and that's my main hand. Let's put it that way. That's not a saying, but my main feeling is like it's good that they finally, because they have been not brave enough around the whole club, maybe, and at least at times in the past, and not ambitious enough. I mean, yes, they can still fail, obviously, but is it really? I mean, fail in winning the title, let's put it that way, because I mean, before the season started, there's no failure to that level anymore possible that anyone would have expected them at this point to be here, even if then in the end they would give it away. I mean, that would suck, but it doesn't change that the ambition should be that they really aim for the highest, and it's more than just a one video, of course, as well as the whole campaign. there can be pro or against that, obviously, but I think it's good. At least they've created some attention as well. I think in that sense it worked for the specific department. That's good work. And now let's see how everything will go. Well, on the pitch so far, no complaints. Obviously, 4-0. Yeah. At the same time, an exaggerated score. On the other hand, indeed, like you said, it could have been more as well. So, like, yeah, much like Fink mentioned after the game, like maybe it was not their best game. All in all, they gave away too many spaces, I guess, at the back as well. But the main thing here was, of course, the quality between the two sides. Gent making a lot of very bad choices in that final third when they had the chance. Of course, first there was a really good start from Genk anyway, so there is. I'm also of the theory, like after 30 minutes it could have been 3-0 and the game would have been over anyway, and well, no matter what would have happened from Gent's side. But now you started to think after that time just because of the two penalty misses, one of which we now know as well, like, was the wrong decision to give a penalty and not just allow the goal. But okay, luckily that's a footnote in the end, because that, well, I don't want to I do really not want to start on referees, but on each game were some little things. Luckily, the decision, the differences between the sides, all in all, were clear enough so that nobody is really going to complain too much. That the sides that were disallowed a goal in this case. I mean, if it's a 4 or 5-0, it shouldn't matter anymore anyway. Missing these two penalties. Also, Tolu never can take any. I don't want to see him take any penalty anymore. I love him now. Like this, that has changed from the start of the season till now. I love him as a player now, but he still should never take any penalty, because he's missed the 3 penalties I believe that he's had in regular games. All 3 he missed. I don't think I've ever seen a striker taking such bad penalties. But luckily, also for him, there was already redemption. Also on the score sheets in the second half, where that was actually a brilliant goal. The second one as well, brilliant team play, and then he set it up himself for a large part. As well, but and then he had a really a very, very good game all in all, despite that penalty miss. But I just don't want him to take any penalties anymore, for sure. That record is just too bad, and not only the record, it's also just the way they go to waste as well. It's not that often outside of the target even, so the goalkeeper is not even forced or too weak. Okay, that can happen, of course, if the goalkeeper dives the other way. It doesn't matter much, but that's bad. Well, but this was so after these 30 minutes, Gent actually had a better spell, because of, most likely as well, Genk being a bit getting a slight knock of not taking their chances, and indeed everyone feeling a bit like, oh no, it shouldn't be one of those games. Good Johnson also missed the sitter basically. I might have been, I think it was ruled offside in the end, and I do think that would have been a correct decision, but it was very tight, so I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that with the hand on my heart to be completely sure there, but ultimately Carezza's I'm hoping, I've been secretly hoping I will make it out of the secret box. It's not a very big take either, but that him really developing in the second half of the season would be the decision-making factor in the for the champions for getting the first place. Whether it will, we don't know, but this was a very good first step, and I've been hoping for that. And like, I know often, and it's still possible, the excuse of like the young squad, can they hold on to the pressure? Is used as like a factor that's negative for Genk. But on the other hand, I try to see it like all these players are really developing really fast, still very young, so they can improve really fast as well, and hopefully they can do it in time. They do it in time. It's more like now it's indeed more about getting that prize over the line. Still 9 games to go, of course, so only 10% of the job done, but still status quo with before the game day, so that's good. Yeah, I've been rambling a lot about Genk. I will keep it a little more, but not much. Just stress again, like 2 disallowed goals, 2 missed penalties, hitting the woodwork as well on one occasion where Tolo did really well. Yeah, and still not having the best of performances, and then winning 4-0. That's great. Also, the bench making a difference as well. Again, of course, really, yeah, that man really doesn't need anything. He showed that again this weekend. To hint, I don't have much to say. I guess I already said it. The one thing about making the wrong choices and either wrong choices or like giving the wrong pass, giving it too soft and so on. Welcome back to the Champions playoffs is one other thing I've noted for Hint. And let's see how they will go on with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Karetsas because I was going to get your thoughts on him. Obviously, declaring for Greece not too long ago, gets his international debut in the recent break, plays very well in both games against Scotland, scores his first senior international goal, scored a great goal this weekend, and all of the raving that lots of people have been doing about him now, not just us, although, regular listeners will know we like to keep this on the relative lowdown because we know that, I think it's very easy to talk up players with potential and talent that that's there, but doing it too much in the wrong way too often tends to lead to disappointment. But here's a player who I think over the last couple of weeks or so has kind of not proved a point, but certainly underlined that everything that's been said about him is absolutely true. And he does seem to have kind of almost gone on to another level. He's really embraced international football now. It was clear that he clearly enjoyed himself and everything that meant to him and his family. It really showed in his performances, was rewarded with a goal, was really good this weekend and is absolutely brimming with confidence at the moment. He really is. And I think if he can maintain that form, I think you're right, Joris. I think he will definitely have a very interesting say and in whether the title can be pulled over the line. On Ghent's part, Daniel Milicevic was talking after this game about not being able to reach their level. We should talk about what Ghent's level actually is, because he did say, we've got a lot of work to do to raise our general level, which was an interesting public admittance that perhaps they are not a playoff one side in some respects. They aspire to be, of course. That's an interesting conversation I was going to ask you about, because coming into these playoffs, we said we thought it would be a 2-tier playoff. So the top 3, who looked like they were going to challenge each other for the majority of the season, I think are absolutely going to do that. Then that other 3 in the playoff, Anderlecht, Antwerp and Ghent, are just not on the same level at all. They all struggle to score goals in the same way and have struggled for meaningful consistency throughout the season as well, which probably explains why neither of those 3 sides are realistically in a position to really push the other 3. But yeah, there's a pretty noticeable gap in general quality between the top 3 and the other 3 sides at the moment, isn't there?
There is, although I will already start with a caveat. Of course, all 3 sides played against the other 3 sides and played away. So like the smaller sides or teams in 4th to 6th position played the first 3 in an away game. Yeah, it's a bit set up like that as well, of course, to give this like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy thing, at least after the first match day. We'll see the next match day. It's still these 3 sides against the top 3 sides, but all 3 at home this time. So that will already make a difference, I'm sure. And I mean, I'm also 100% sure that that not all 3, and maybe not even any of them, although that I see possible, but like that of Union, Club Brugge and Genk will get all the points, all 18 points against against these other 3 sides. I do think they will pick up points also against those sides. But it's more likely at home. That's the first thing. And secondly, Yeah, we'll have to see. It's a bit early to make these kind of conclusions as well, but in like, so same thing as with as what I said about um the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's also a bit of confirmation bias, I guess, at the moment still. Maybe because we all thought it would be, so we think it would be, and like we see the score lines and the games, the performance of this weekend, there's not much to contradict our hypothesis. But yeah, that's yeah. It's a bit early to tell, but I think we can already say most that indeed the top three will stay the top three, and the 4 to 6 place will also stay in their positions. Well, in these respective brackets, the order of sides, of course, is inside those brackets is something else. That's another topic. And then that we'll find out over the course of the next what is it? Yeah, 9 match days is also 9 weeks. I think it is. Yeah, that's something else. But it does look like yeah, the top sides really were ready for it as well. Yeah, that really stands out as two. But yeah, let's see what we say next week.
Yeah, see what next week brings. As always, things change quickly in football. I think those three clubs that we were just talking about, Anderlecht, Antwerp and Ghent, they've got an interesting summer ahead of them, I think, for a number of reasons. Definitely a lot to watch out with those three clubs beyond the end of this season in terms of their preparations for next year and being in a better place in terms of trying to achieve the consistency that they would like to have. Moving on to playoff 2, the European playoff, which is very exciting already. Matchday 1, all 6 sides only separated by 2 points. Coming into this weekend, we should tell everybody that Joris said, I'd like to order a Dender win this weekend, knowing that would make this playoff start very, very interestingly. And that's what we got, but more of them in a second.
What happened? I'll already create the context there. I didn't say that before the weekend. I said that after some results were already in. It's not that it came out of nowhere.
What did happen in playoff 2 this weekend? Well, Leuven drew 0-0 with Charleroi. Standard and Mechelen drew 2 apiece, and Dender delivered the win that Joris was looking for to get things really interesting. They managed to beat Westerlo 1-0. So Dendrief first, Joris, a 0-0. Despite this being a 0-0, there were plenty of chances in this game for both sides, but for a lack of efficiency, we probably would have had quite a few goals in this game. And I suppose my question really is, how the hell did Charleroi not win this? That's what I'm thinking just now. I mean, we know it's lack of efficiency, but what they created, I mean, really frustrating for Rick de Mil. Really frustrating.
I have to admit, I didn't watch this game live, and on the highlights, yeah, they were not the best highlights ever. I have to say, I think, but yeah, just by the bare facts and playing against 10 men for quite a while, and then yeah, creating quite some chances. That alone, yeah, supports your statement or like your question, your exclamation. But yeah, that's really efficiency lacking indeed. It was one of the things I wrote down for this game as well. Yeah, on the red card, of course, as well. Mijatovic coming on after the first half and getting 2 yellows inside the first 15 minutes. Yeah, that's not great. I mean, Bozhinov could have broken that record this week, but he didn't. But afterwards, with yeah, 15 minutes and as a sub, that's. And as an attacking player on that as well as a defender, it's also a bit more likely that something like this can happen. Yeah, but okay, it didn't happen. And yeah, 14 draws for Leuven now. That's almost half of their games. So yeah, that's not bringing you much forward, but they're still in the race, as Scott mentioned already, with the distances that there are. Of course, everyone is in the race. How great is that? But yeah, that's yeah. And well, okay, and Leuven still maintaining, despite, yeah, okay, many of them have been draws, but only Club Brugge have won at Den Dreef this season still so far. So that's a really good record for a side that is in that playoff for sure.
Yeah, Rick DeMille was bemoaning the fact that they couldn't get the points after this one, as you would expect. He said normally with what we created this weekend, you would win this game, but the lack of quality let us down. It definitely did. And that's something for them to work on the training pitch over the next few days. Moving on to Schlesien. Another draw. This time we did get some goals. Standard and Mechelen finishing 2 each. I thought Mechelen were quite sloppy. Giving away 2 goals from kind of bad individual mistakes. Ultimately, the Standard side that we know have been struggling to score goals don't tend to score more than 1 in a game this season, so that in itself was fairly unusual. Standard have not beaten Mechelen, I think, in 13 now as well, so this is not a fixture that they enjoy these days. Both these sides obviously will harbour high hopes of being able to win this playoff, obviously, and secure European football for different reasons.
Yeah, bad record against Mechelen was yet again something I wrote down, but I knew you would touch on it, so I left the details for you this time. I've got a question for you. Once again, with the Comfort Insights with Standard. How long ago has it been since both sides in a Standard game have scored at least twice? Yeah.
I think it's been a while. I think it's been quite a long while, but I can't put a figure on it.
Actually, it hasn't been that long. It's like, what was it, the 9th of February? If I read my handwriting correctly here, in February anyway. 4-2 in Westerlo, so that where they lost the game, but scored 2. But anyway, sorry. Standard a nice side to get the stats on, because like there's always one game in between somewhere that you forget about that they actually were a bit more exciting to watch. But yeah, and that the game actually was exciting to watch at least as well. But yeah, that's not great for them, of course, to not get a win over the line here. Sclessin was also really, I believe there was only 8,000 people. So obviously, as much as I'm hoping for an exciting playoffs, it doesn't look like it's really exciting the fans as much from the sides, even from the sides that are involved. That's always has been a bit of an issue with this second playoff, I fear. But still, everyone is still in the mix. Standard is indeed definitely there as well. But Mechelen, beginning with a draw away from home, despite the good record against Standard, is probably not so bad. I guess you would sign for that. And of course, Van Rafelgem getting his first goal, also good for his confidence and just in general for Mechelen as well, to not only have to rely on Raman, who only gave an assist this game, of course, but still, he still is their main threat. Surprisingly, I suppose, actually, we still could say from before the season, looking from before the season. But all to play for in these playoffs, also for both of those sides.
Yep. Speaking of all to play for, Dendon have got themselves back into the conversation. As we're saying, only the 2 points separating the 6 sides. Their first win in 7 this weekend, beating Westerlo 1-0. Second game in a row at home where the floodlights failed. So, there needs to be a meeting called urgently there to have a look at that, obviously. Electricians, pulling their hair out. I think the delay this time was only about 10 minutes though, so it wasn't as bad as the previous game. I can't, and I bet you don't have the answer to this one actually either. I can't think of the last time there was consecutive floodlight failures at a game anywhere, never mind in Belgium. If anyone knows the answer to that, you know where to find us. Yeah, this game was settled ultimately by that own goal of Brian Reynolds. That was the difference in the end. Dender tend to be quite hard to break down when they go in front as well. Timmy Simons, who obviously knows them very well, left them at the end of last season after they secured promotion under him to go to Westerlo, and he spoke afterwards about how they are. He knows better than anybody, arguably, that they're hard to break down when they take the lead, particularly at home, and then they play the low block. Little shout out for Westerlo goalkeeper Andreas Jungdahl. Thought he was brilliant this weekend. Really, really good. Loads of saves, and actually, okay, they lost, but he more than did his part in trying to get them some points in this game. Really strong shot-stopping performance from him. And he's looked pretty decent generally for Westerlo, actually. Just sort of throw that out there, since he had a great game this weekend. But yeah, I think Vincent Everard just pleased that there was some good news at Dender. They really needed that win. I think just to kind of reassure them that they do deserve to be where they are.
Yeah. On the go, I tried to ChatGPT that question that Scott asked us, and it didn't really show any results there. So it only gave a few occurrences, especially in the UK, in England, where it happened once quite recently. Apparently in Luton and in Wigan, it has happened in the last few years, but not in consecutive games. So that's interesting. Yeah. And of course, Dender now being the only side to win a game in this playoff so far, everyone within 2 points. Also noteworthy, of course, that it was also a bit lined up like that. If these two games, first games, would have been draws, that everyone would be even closer, because it was the first against the second going into this, the third against the fourth, and the fifth against the sixth. And now the sixth has won from the fifth, so they leapfrog Westerlo with the same amount of points. And since the other results didn't yield any winners, they were they're definitely good. To take the win here, and they looked up for the playoffs, I guess, as well. Because like I said, not every side, fans aside, but maybe also just every as player, as a squad, doesn't necessarily seem really up for those playoffs. But then they really did. They really did deserve this. This win. Bit ironic that it's in the end an own goal deciding it. Of course, they should have and could have scored without as well, but it was probably indeed the only way to beat Ljungdahl, because that was the only Westerlo player who seemed up to it, as you already touched on as well. It's the first time I really am convinced by him, to be honest. Unlike what you're saying, like he has had his moments, but I'm not completely convinced throughout the whole games yet. Maybe it comes, of course, but then there's maybe they're aiming for Europe like this, given all the things, that are there, and of course they're now free of relegation worries. That definitely will play a role as well. And they did get a clean sheet, which didn't happen that often. Not that little either. Like there's other sides which I'll touch on not in this relegation playoffs in a while, that have had worse records. I believe it's like the eight clean sheet, which is not too shabby, I guess. But a must-win game for them if they want to play a role in the playoffs, and they did. So at least they saved their next few games, at least they at least look exciting for them as well. If not for the fans, at least for the players. And outside of Ljungdahl, there really was no one from Westerlo where to mention, so I'm not gonna dwell on them either.
There you go. There it is. You mentioned the Dender fans, and they definitely enjoyed themselves because they were singing about playing in Europe. So, they feel that, there's plenty to play for there, and there absolutely is. Why not? There's a feeling that this playoff is probably going to go to the wire. And it's been a long time since we've had a playoff too, to be honest. Certainly a few years now, 2 or 3 at least, that's been as tight and as interesting as this. So plenty of reasons to watch that. And keep an eye on it still. Moving on to the opposite end of the table, the end of the table that nobody wants to be at, the relegation playoff. We've lost our first side officially now. Beershot have gone. They've fallen through the trapdoor. What seemed inevitable for months has finally come to pass. Both them and us have been put out of our misery to some extent. They lost 1-0 at home, Beershot, to St Truden this weekend, and Kortrijk and Circle drew 2 apiece. Dirkhout actually made me laugh quite a bit this weekend. He was talking afterwards about this game before the relegation was confirmed, Joris, before the Kortrijk Circle game, and he happened to comment and say, "Look, I'm a winner, and losing hurts." Which I thought was kind of quite funny, because although that's true of his playing career, I would have thought he'd got used to losing by now, because they have lost 19 games this season and conceded 61. So, yeah, it's brutal, isn't it? You know, those two sides of his footballing career. Someone who had a star-studded, glittering career as a player. Wonderful CV, not the greatest CV as a coach, not having the greatest time at the moment, and it's been a really difficult season for them. Of course, it wasn't helped by the fact that they Velit Kagro getting a red card inside the first 5 minutes for a really sloppy challenge. But not the first time Beershot have fallen foul of things like that. St Truden eventually getting the points, getting over the line. Probably should have won this game by more. They were well on top, but I think the fact that they only won 1-0 probably underlines why they are where they are as well.
Yes, exactly. But I'll get to them soon. But yes, indeed. Imagine your 2 actions in the game, I think, inside the first 2 minutes, I think it's even, are I don't know if it's actually named how you call it in English as well, but making the Zidane movement. That was the one thing in the highlights, and then getting sent off. With a ridiculous challenge inside his first 2 or 3 minutes. That's another thing that must not have happened often or at all, even maybe anywhere. That underlines, sadly, that also took away all the excitement of this game. Not that there was that much, but you were maybe still thinking maybe Beerschot can get something, not for themselves, but can make this more interesting for the 3 other sides. And also for themselves, of course, to at least stay alive 1 or 2 weeks longer. But okay, that would have been just prolonging their execution. But that was gone by then. That, even though Sint-Truiden indeed, they were not as convincing. Yes, of course, they deserved to win and that they had their chances, but it shows indeed that they are still lacking, and shows why they are in the position that they are in. That's definitely, that a very important win though as well. So that's all important win to create some breathing space. It's okay. It is definitely okay. Not that much breathing space ultimately, given other results, but at least they give it a good go, and they did leapfrog and are going top so far. In this mini playoff, of course, also only 6 games in this one instead of the 10 with the others. Worth mentioning that, of course. But and at least for the bottom 2 to not be in the bottom 2, they give themselves breathing space. Now they will have to see it over the line to stay ahead of Cercle Brugge, to make it higher. If they really are completely free of sort of worries for the bottom 2, also not completely yet, but it's highly likely. I would at least say now. And it was their 3rd away win and their 5th clean sheet. That's also one of the things. Of course, they are lacking clean sheets, and now they had one. Even though, ultimately, in the final minutes, it could have become quite exciting again as well, because there was some Beerschot pressure, and there was even some shouts for a penalty, and that could have really derailed Sint-Truiden, if not in this game, but then for the course of these playoffs. Now they got away with it. It was just about good enough. And on Beerschot, a few things to mention, more like off the pitch things, I guess. Van La Parra getting a contract extension, despite that was before the game, but okay, even then he knew that they would go down already, I'm sure. So that's I guess he looked okay this so far for them, based on his records as well. Before it should be a good player for the Challenger Pro League, still. But yeah, that's one thing, and have to give it on the pitch. Have to give it to them. They keep fighting. They kept fighting despite, yeah, everything going against them a little bit again in this game. But also again, rumors again about an Antwerp club, about the ownerships, of course, and about an ownership change, which, yeah, okay, is always interesting. It could go both ways again, but it might be better. Given the real lack of interest, I guess that this has been shown by the Saudi owners, except in bringing in some Saudi players who actually have been quite decent for them this season, admittedly. But yeah, definitely not enough involvement there and support for Dirkat, who, of course, indeed also has not really shown himself as the manager, but except for at least they're still fighting. That you have to give it to them, but yeah, they're down now after the first game, and that's going to be fun playoffs for them, playdowns for them now, I guess. So yeah, I guess not much more to say about it.
Yeah, they're very interesting, those rumours about the Japanese consortium, because it is a Japanese consortium of businessmen who seem to have resurrected their interest in Beerschot. There was interest a little while ago that hit the buffers for a few reasons, which seems to have been resurrected only in recent weeks, quite dramatically. And United World seem publicly to be admitting that they are open to potentially selling the club. So quite a lot could happen there over the summer as well. St Truden, interestingly, Joris, their next two fixtures, Kortrijk at home, which you would imagine Kortrijk cannot afford to lose if they want to hold on to any slim hopes of maybe sneaking that playoff final spot. And then Cercle at home. If St Truden could win against Kortrijk, then that puts them in a very strong situation to slog it out with Cercle. To see who can avoid that playoff drop. Speaking of Cercle, they drew 2 each with Kortrijk. Cercle just not able to see this one out. Not for the first time this season. They've dropped 2 points right at the death. There was that game against Standard at the Jan Breidel not too long ago now, where Standard equalised pretty much with the last touch of the ball, 98th minute, I think, 98th, 99th minute of the game. And interestingly, if they'd held on to that win, they wouldn't be in the situation they were now in. Those 2 points proving pretty pivotal to where they now are. A game lacking in quality, this one, but they did manage to turn it around after going behind. Looked like they were going to see it out. And I said, while we were watching the game, I said they just need to see this out, get game management. And sure enough, who pops up? But, the one player in a Kortrijk shirt who, you can rely on to maybe produce something for you. Kadri doing the goods. A goal that Jimmy DeWolf said you should never really concede, which he's probably right about that. It was a slight freak element to the goal, but, a really good hit. And a big disappointment for them. Jimmy DeWolf obviously taking over after Besnik Hazy didn't take over. And I'm actually really pleased for Jimmy DeWolf that he's getting this opportunity. He's been at Cercle for a long time, since 2014, played for the club, over 100 caps for Cercle. Really deserves a shot. And I think when you bear in mind that they lost out on their preferred target in Besnik Hazy, I think in many ways it was the only choice they could have made. And I'm quite pleased that they've done it on a permanent basis. as well. I think it probably is the right choice. He's worked with certainly the last 3 or 4 coaches that have been in there: Miron Muslic, Dominic Talhammer, Yves van der Eyga. He outlasts all of them, has worked with the youth teams as well. Has been permanently on the coaching staff. So I think, he absolutely deserves a shot. And I thought there was interesting flashes from Circle. Stephen Gura was showing little bits of promise as to what he maybe could offer when he's fully fit. He was getting into lots of good positions and doing lots of things right, falling over a little bit at key moments as well, which is never ideal. But I saw enough positive signs to suggest that there could be a decent player in there once he works up a head of steam. Kortrijk, I'm not sure. I'll get your thoughts on how they approach this game tactically, because Dr. Stork, as I'm going to call him, the good Dr. Stork, I'm not sure he got this entirely right. I think he knew Cercle were going to press the game, but it looked very much to me as if Kortrijk were happy to try and contain them and hit them on the break, which was, I thought, a bit of a dangerous game to play. In many respects, particularly when you're in a relegation playoff and really you have to seize every opportunity that you get. I suspect he was gambling on the fact that, Cercle have left a lot of space in games where they wouldn't ordinarily. And I actually think defensively they were a little bit dodgy again this weekend. The first goal, really nice actually, nice header across the goal, but again, probably should have done better there with that. But yeah, I mean, Cercle, gutting to drop points on the opening weekend, and if they got that over the line, it would have changed the complexion of things a little bit for them. But it's not ultimately harmed them too much, depending on what happens this weekend.
Yeah, the main thing with the late equalizer is, of course, well, the world does look different. Kortrijk would have probably been out, but if they would have held on to it now, there's still a slim chance. It's still slim, but it's also mainly the way it goes, of course. And the boost that Kortrijk probably will have gotten out of it in the end. And against the worst feeling Cercle got out of it, of this game. So, Cercle, of course, have everything in their own hands still. And especially now, they should be able to bounce back. Against Beerschot. If they fumble that, then it becomes really, really tricky, even regardless of the results. Even if Kortrijk doesn't really get a result in Sint-Truiden, Kortrijk, of course, they don't really have that much margin of error anymore. But that before the game, you would have said the draw is not enough for Kortrijk. In the end, the feeling is completely different, even though that's the result that's gotten. It has been gotten. What the result that was there? What's there? But Laga first goal, great for him, a professional goal at least, and then getting a red card and bringing his side into trouble. And I think at least there, Stork probably made the wrong call at that point. He did go for a bit more defensive approach and try to defend that 1-0, which is fully understandable, obviously. Also, especially since the situation they're in, and also they brought themselves 1-0 up, so they were in a favorable position, and they didn't need to score if they would have defended better. Than until you both Scott and Ben were saying that that this was really a cagey game and like really not a really a good game. Obviously, just more really like the fighting game for the relegation scrap. The first thing I see when I finally tune into this game, so obviously I missed a lot of it, was Yekum getting the ball and then hitting and ramming it into the corner. So after a nice move as well. So I was like, okay, this is actually maybe not the worst game. I'll stick around. Okay. Actually, it was not a great game, obviously, but that was to be expected. But we got a few good goals in it. Cercle Brugge. First time since Muslic they scored more than once. That hasn't happened in the league. That is, of course, that hasn't happened under Veldhofer, who already got a new club as well, of course, in his beloved Austria, in Graz AK. But nonetheless, that's a side note. But under him, they didn't manage to score more than once in the league. They did manage to do so in Europe, of course, but not in the league. And you mentioned it already, of course. Again, not getting it over the line against a 10 men at that point. Well, it stayed 10 men, Kortrijk. Also, Abu Francis then getting a silly second yellow card or red card. Of course, could argue, was it really worth it to give it to him? That's another discussion, but it was anyway not smart what he was doing and provoking and then giving reasons to get that yellow card and that red card ultimately, and bringing his side into more trouble in the next games as well, of course. That another reason why the feelings on being both camps before and after the game with the same results will be completely different. Will have been, at least maybe by now. Things have cooled down in the Circle camp specifically, but the pressure is still there for sure, and you can feel it. And no, that was the main thing. Like, I guess, like, realistically, Kortrijk should have won this game for really get a chance, but let's see what this boost of the late equalizer brings. I have to admit as well, De Lange not doing the best there as well. It was a good shot from Kadri, but I feel like he could have done better, and maybe that would have been the world of difference for them ultimately. If I'm not mistaken, this is something I'm trying to shake out of my pocket currently, but it's also, well, Cercle have not beaten Kortrijk in the three fixtures. I know Kortrijk won in Bruges, but I actually forgot the league fixture now with that the home fixture, this fixture in the league. I'll quickly look it up and if that's correct, but not a good record anyway from Cercle Brugge against Kortrijk this season. But I forgot. Did they? I also have an idea that it could have been a 1-2 in the end, but I don't know if Scott knows about it anymore. But I'll look it up.
You can't say, our good listeners can't say they don't get their money's worth, can they, Joris? Because we pose each other difficult questions and we try to get the answers for you in real time as well. It doesn't get any better than that. You mentioned Abu Francis's red card, which was quite frustrating when I was watching it, because I was thinking Lawrence Wieser is the one referee that you will never get away with, back chat with. You know, he's famous for not letting you away with anything. We've seen, even this season alone, countless times where players have picked up yellow cards for just being a little bit too loose with their lips, and obviously under the new regulations stating that in theory only captains can communicate directly with referees. With this particular referee, you're actually just asking for trouble. I think his frustration obviously got the better of them, but you know, one of a number of amusing Lawrence Wieser stories from this season. It feels like there's several every year. We know he likes to be a bit of a personality in his own right.
It was 1-1, so I was correct at least. But of course, also still worth mentioning, of course, it was, how could I forget, it was Paris Brunner's only goal in the late equalizer for Cercle Brugge at the time. So they get the different sides of that this time to get a draw, but still, Cercle not beating Kortrijk so far this season could become a real issue by the end of these playoffs as well, if that doesn't change. But a lot of ifs and buts before that's the case.
Yep, all about holding your nerve in that playoff. As we know, plenty of people have said that both Cercle and St Truden, who are looking likely to be one of those two sides, will almost certainly take part in the playoff final against the Challenger Pro League playoff winning side. But despite both of those sides probably being stronger in terms of quality, it's all about holding your nerve. All it takes is, a bad game for you to really be in serious trouble. So no margin for error. Speaking of margins of error and holding your your nerve. We should touch on before we round up on the Challenger Pro League this weekend. Obviously, we've just come back from an international break. The Red Devils managed to turn it around, Joris. They went to Spain to play Ukraine in the first leg. Had a miserable evening on the whole, lost 3-1. Everybody was really doubting, or most people were kind of doubting whether they were going to be able to turn it around, because we hadn't seen a lot recently to suggest that that was going to happen. That is in the end what they did. They did what they needed to do. They held their nerve, listened to everybody else out there, managed to win the second leg 3-0, partly because Sergei Rebrov probably tactically set up pretty badly in this game to try and lock it down and see the game out, which, usually is asking for trouble. But yeah, the Red Devils managing to win 4-3, big sigh of relief from many of us. So next, the Red Devils obviously have got the World Cup qualifying campaign coming up. That starts in June. Opening fixtures there, North Macedonia away and Wales at home as well. So we'll come back to all of that nearer the time. Dropping down a division to the Challenger Pro League, that is also reaching the critical stage of the season there. Matchday 27 now. What happened there this weekend? Well, Molenbeek beat Sarang 3-0 and are now one win away from a return to the Pro League. Young Genk lost 1-0 to Ral. Liers lost 1-0 to Beveren. Zulte Waregem beat Anderlecht Futures 3-1. Lokeren beat Lommel 1-0. RFC Liège and Patro drew 2 each. And Eupen beat Club Next 1-0. So, yep, as I was saying, Joris, Molenbeek are almost there. Another win will do it for them. They're top at the moment on 56 points. They have a pretty easy fixture run in with their last few games, so you would imagine they'll get over the line this weekend, but stranger things have happened. Zulte, who are breathing down their neck, in second on 55 points. 2 wins from their last 3 will be enough for them, providing Ral don't drop any more points. Ral obviously in third, on 53 points, and hoping that Zulte drop a clanger somewhere just to allow them to squeak in there again. Stranger things have happened. We have seen Zulte collapse before, so it ain't over yet, but it's looking like very strongly like it's going to be Molenbeek and Zulte coming back to the top table shortly.
Yeah, and lower in the table, it's interesting to see that Lokeren, who were in the winter window still like struggling and one of the candidates to relegate, have now won a lot of their last few games. I believe, I don't remember the number, but they're now 2 points away from playing the promotion playoffs, and well, 2 points and with 1 game in hand, so they even have everything in their own hands there to leapfrog Liers in this case and get 7th place, which would be enough since Club Next, for obvious reasons, cannot participate in those playoffs. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Molenbeek. It's also going to be interesting indeed to see how they will perform. They have the final game against Zulte Waregem as well, of course, but will that still matter? Is now that's a game that's more or less keeping Laluviere's hopes up. But if both sides or one of those sides are already certain of promotion, of course, then they have an issue. I guess then they won't be able to get up even before that game, or well, the spirits of some players might be different there. But yeah, wait and see. But it looks promising, and like you said, that Molenbeek and Zulte Waregem will be coming back, and we'll have to indeed see if we've indeed seen stranger things already than now one of those sides fumbling it in the final stretch. It's possible, but it's not very likely at the moment. Also worth mentioning, of course, Molenbeek still haven't gone now 9 games still without conceding a goal. So yeah, if they can make it then 10, then it's highly likely that they will get that promotion over the line already soon.
And of course, it wouldn't be the first time that Yannick Ferreira's achieved that in his career. The Molenbeek T1, of course, he got St Truden promoted back to the Pro League when he was there as well. So, he's hoping to add another promotion to his CV, which he may do this weekend. Keep an eye on that. You're talking about Lokeren. I think it's 5 wins in their last 6, I think, since Steinverieven came back in. So they've definitely had an upturn and will certainly be pushing very hard to get into that playoff conversation. And who knows, with the run of form that they're in. I think if RAL ultimately miss out an automatic promotion, they've had an extraordinarily good season. I don't think anybody thought they were going to be in the position that they were in, let alone get to the stage where, 3 weeks out from the end of the season that they would push so hard for an automatic promotion spot. And obviously with the new stadium being so close to being completed now, lots of positive things for them to look forward to. And in many ways, one of the few clubs in Wallonia who really are kind of on the up at the moment. RFC Liège, to be fair to them, not doing too badly. They would like to be considered as part of that conversation and should shout out to them. All things considered, considering the size of their club and that they're not doing too badly at the moment, although not as well as they did last season. But yeah, RAL will probably, even if it is to be the playoffs for them, I suspect they'll still fancy their chances just based on how consistent they've generally been this season. Obviously, that's a different game again to kind of going up automatically, but I think they would fancy their chances if it's to be the playoffs as well. Well, that's it. That's another week in Belgian football, Joris. The first week of the playoffs done and dusted. If you like what we do here at the BFP, please do consider leaving us a little review on your podcast platform of choice. That's always very nice for us here. And it also helps new listeners find us as well, which is never a bad thing when we're trying to spread the love on Belgian football. If you really like what we're doing, you can, of course, buy us a coffee at our Buy Us a Coffee account. That goes a small way to meeting some of our production costs here at the BFP. Whatever you're up to, Joris, have a fantastic week. I know, and we can let everybody know, you won't be here next week, but we will be in good company, as we always are at the BFP. So whatever you're up to, everybody, stay safe, have a great week, and we will speak to you very, very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.